let me tell you about the death of my mom and her best friend. Well, before that, they were wasting away in a Roman prison. The air was thick, the floor was wet, chains cut into their skin. They had already been told how they would die, not quietly, not mercifully. They would be dragged into a public arena and torn apart by wild animals. What's strange is who you would expect to find in a place like this. Not criminals, not soldiers, but two young women sitting side by side in the dark. One of them had just given birth. The other was still carrying a child. And neither of them had committed a crime. They were arrested with a small group and locked away without explanation. Days passed. Their food was scarce. Their bodies weakened. Their execution date crept closer. Visitors came to see them, not to comfort them, but to beg them. One visitor in particular returned again and again. An older man. He wept. He shouted. He pleaded. He told one of the women that she was destroying her family. He pointed to her newborn child and said, "Just say the words. You can leave this place today." She did not answer him. There was another problem. One of the women was pregnant, which meant the execution could not happen yet. And that terrified her. Not because she wanted to live, but because she would be left behind. She whispered a prayer in the darkness that her child would come early. And then it happened. Inside the prison, in chains, she went into labor. The guards mocked her cries. She answered them, "Now I suffer alone. Then another will suffer in me." Only later would the world learn who they were. They were Christians, arrested during a Roman persecution in the year 203. One was a noblewoman in her early 20s, educated, respected, a new mother. Her name was Perpetua. The other was her servant and closest friend, a slave girl. Her name was Felicity. They had refused to deny their faith, and for that, they had been sentenced to die. The day came. They were taken from the prison into a roaring arena. Thousands watched. They were forced into the sand like animals themselves. One of them was thrown into the air. The other was crushed and dragged. Their bodies were broken. But they stood up again, bleeding, shaken, still alive. They were brought back together in the center. They held each other, not in panic, but in peace. And then, they were executed by the sword. Rome believed their deaths would erase them. Instead, their story survived. One of them had secretly written about her imprisonment. Her words were copied, her courage remembered. And the slave girl, who refused to die alone, was honored beside her friend. They were not warriors. They were not rebels. They were a young mother and the woman who would not abandon her. They lost their lives, but they did not lose their faith. And their story leaves a question behind. When following what you believe costs you comfort, safety, and the future you imagined, what will you do? Will you run, or will you stay? They stayed together, and history never forgot them.